Noah never envisioned the day I would depart from her. She believed my love for her outweighed my own existence, even permitting her to reconnect with her first love. What she was unaware of was that I had married her, acting as her devoted supporter, solely dedicated to her. However, between us, it was purely transactional. There were no emotions involved. It was 8 in the evening when I found myself reheating the cold food on the table. This marked the third time that night I had entered the kitchen. The chicken soup I had prepared for Noah was now cold. Just as the food needed reheating, my heart felt repeatedly wounded each night as I awaited Lucia's return. I sighed, yet my hands continued their task. After warming the meal, I swiftly began cleaning the house, ensuring the table was spotless. I then laid out Noah's clothes for the next day and ironed them ahead of time. As I pressed the garments, I remembered to spray her favorite rose perfume, recalling the scent vividly. By the time I had prepared her bath and brewed calming tea, it was already 10 o'clock. Finally, the door opened and Noah entered, visibly exhausted. I deftly took her bag and knelt to change her shoes. Just as I was about to inquire about her day, she cut me off, saying she was going to take a shower first. Noah didn't even glance my way, her attention consumed by her phone, occasionally smiling to herself. When she eventually looked up and saw me, her smile disappeared instantly. She removed her jacket, tossed it on the floor, and impatiently gave instructions. Wash her clothes and change her perfume. Always using roses? How cliché. Rolling her eyes, she headed to the bathroom, and soon the sound of running water mixed with her occasional clear laughter filled the house. I had grown accustomed to this silence. I placed the clothes in the washing machine and reheated the food for the fourth time. When Noah emerged, she deliberately walked barefoot over the freshly cleaned floor, her half-dried hair dripping water, making the once tidy home appear somewhat disheveled. Noah was absorbed in her phone, pressed the voice button, and replied flirtatiously, "Samuel, you should sleep early too. Good night." She glanced at the dining table, sniffed dismissively, and sneered. "Same few dishes every time. So boring. I'm not eating." She then turned and went upstairs, slamming the bedroom door shut. The loud bang felt like a blow to my chest. I looked around the house, every corner meticulously arranged by me, but it seemed pointless. Despite all my efforts and sacrifices for this home and for her, it likely meant nothing in Noah's eyes compared to a simple good night for Samuel. I didn't begin clearing the table as usual. Instead, I turned off all the living room lights and checked my phone, noticing several missed calls. I returned the call to my mother-in-law. When she answered, her worried voice asked, "David, are you really going to divorce Noah?" I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I lay down on the couch, staring at our wedding photo. In the picture, I smiled humbly, trying to uplift Noah, while she stared at me coldly, maintaining her distance. Feeling a surge of exhaustion, I muttered, "Mom, the only reason I was with Noah was due to our family's business relationship. Now that the business is stable and the contract has expired, there's no reason for me to stay and be an eyesore." There was a long silence before my mother-in-law sighed softly. "David, I know you've been suffering these years, and I've seen it. You and Noah were childhood sweethearts. In terms of family background, character, and commitment, you've always been the best son-in-law in my eyes. But who would have thought that girl would fall for some little celebrity and never look at you? Your parents are waiting for you abroad. Are you planning to go back? Maybe I should talk to Noah again. She really doesn't appreciate what she has." Listening to her endless chatter, I stared at the dark ceiling. Everything that was once familiar now felt strange, all because Noah had expressed her liking for F-City. 5 years ago, I had left my family and career behind, purchasing a large flat in F-City to be our wedding home. I moved to this city without relatives or friends, overcoming the unfamiliarity with the hope that building a home with Noah would create happy memories. Instead, reality had slapped me awake, revealing that not everything can be achieved through sheer effort. I interrupted my mother-in-law politely, saying, "Mom, it's fine. I should go back." After ending the call, I drifted into a haze and soon fell asleep, memories flooding my mind as I dreamed of that day 5 years ago. 5 years prior, I had returned to China with my parents as our family business expanded domestically, necessitating collaboration with the influential Liu family. During a dinner, I learned that our families were about to sign an important contract and met Noah, the childhood friend I had always thought about. Back then, Noah was thin, disheveled, with unkempt hair, leaning against the balcony, staring blankly and appearing very sad. From Lou's mother, I discovered that Noah was in love with Samuel, a member of a boy band. She had financially supported his debut, produced an album for him, and even sent him to Korea for training. They had been passionately involved for 2 years, with Noah rarely coming home, following him around the world. However, a month ago, Samuel publicly announced his relationship with an actress and cut off contact with Noah. Nearly losing her sanity, Noah tried to reach him, even going to the airport to intercept him, seeking closure. Instead, she was beaten by his fans who mistook her for an obsessive stalker and was sent to the hospital. After that, Noah spiraled into despair, spending her days partying, drinking, and dancing, torturing her body. As I listened, my eyes couldn't help but follow Noah, but she clearly no longer remembered me. Lou's mother then suggested adding a clause to the contract, stating that since we would be working closely together, we needed to become one family to build trust. Partly for the family business and partly out of personal interest, I abandoned the idea of inheriting my family's business and signed a business marriage contract with the Liu family. The 5-year deal required me to conceal my identity and pursue Noah passionately as a lowly employee, doing everything for her without expecting anything in return. From that day forward, Noah had a shadow following her everywhere. I loved her humbly, willing to do anything, and didn't mind that she had someone else in her heart. I quietly watched over her. Noah never rejected my kindness, but always refused to give me an answer. Then, on the 99th attempt to propose, Noah, holding a glass of wine, looked at me drunkenly. She lightly laughed, smashed the wine glass on the floor, and in front of everyone beckoned me over, saying, "Of course, if you're proposing, you have to kneel to show sincerity. Don't you think so?" Suddenly, many onlookers began to tease, and Noah's best friend boldly mocked me. "Compared to Samuel, you're just a well-behaved dog. Without sincerity, why would Noah marry you?" I knew she was trying to embarrass me, but without hesitation, I kneeled on the broken glass, blood pouring out instantly. That was the first time Noah panicked in front of me. She almost jumped up and hugged me tightly on the yacht, fireworks exploding across the night sky, lighting up her clear eyes. I saw reluctance and pain in her gaze, and momentarily felt blinded by that tenderness. I said, "Noah, marry me, and I will protect you for the rest of my life." Noah leaned her head on my shoulder and nodded vigorously. Despite our marriage being built on false pretenses, I always believed that Noah's pain was genuine in that moment. I had thought that Noah didn't love me deeply, but there would always be a place for me in her heart as long as I continued to do my best for her. I hoped that one day I could win her over. However, I later learned that the only reason Noah agreed to marry me was that Samuel had posted a public display of affection that day, showcasing their engagement photos. We got married, but Noah continued to play games. She would go out late every night, never providing me with an address. After Samuel announced his divorce, Noah disappeared for 2 whole months, chasing Samuel around the world, attending his tours, and secretly sending him money behind my back. Samuel returned to the country to celebrate his birthday, and Noah even rented an entire building to throw him a party. While racing motorcycles with some small-time celebrities, something went wrong. When I went to the police station to bail Noah out, she was so drunk she could barely stay conscious. I stayed by her side all night, but she kept calling out other men's names in her sleep. That was when I knew it was time for the contract to end and for me to let go. By noon the next day, Noah slowly woke up. Seeing simple white porridge and eggs on the table, she frowned and requested a sandwich. I didn't move, instead quietly drinking from my bowl. I replied, "We're out of ingredients. Maybe next time." I knew there wouldn't be a next time. My plane ticket was already booked, and in a month I would leave for good. I didn't feel like arguing anymore. Fortunately, Noah didn't seem to care. She grumbled and sat down, still glued to her phone, occasionally chuckling without hiding her enjoyment of whoever she was chatting with. I set my spoon down, quietly waiting for her to finish. Then I handed her the divorce papers I had already prepared. "Noah, let's get a divorce," I said calmly, as if discussing an everyday matter. Noah, still smiling with her phone in hand, barely glanced up and half-heartedly replied, "Okay," with a bitter smile. I had known all along that Noah had no feelings for me. Now that Samuel was back, the slight attention I once received from her had faded. I couldn't even get her to listen anymore. I flipped the contract to the last page and pointed to the blank spot in the lower right corner. "Just sign here," I instructed. "Mm-hmm." Noah raised her brows in annoyance, perhaps frustrated that I interrupted her happy moment. She quickly signed her name without looking up, too absorbed in her conversation. I watched silently as she finished and took the contract without a word. "In a month, we'll get the divorce certificate. I'll be leaving the country. Let's part on good terms." She waved me off. I know, it's so annoying, without sparing me another glance. Immediately, she dialed a number on her phone, her expression turning sweet as she flirted with the person on the other end. I couldn't hold back and called out to her, "Noah, do you even know what you just signed?" Noah paused, looking back at me with confusion in her eyes. She replied, "Wasn't it a business contract? I already told you to handle the business stuff on your own. Don't bother me with it." She sighed, clearly irritated, as if issuing a final warning. "Do you need something? If so, just say it once and for all. Don't waste my time." Noah remained indifferent, enjoying all my sacrifices without a second thought, never caring about my feelings or actions. I laughed and said, "No, there's nothing else. There won't be anything else on my mind. I thought you could be happy with Samuel from now on. I won't disturb you anymore." After sending the divorce papers to the lawyer, I went to Wong Corporation to wrap up my work with the vice president. He had been waiting in the office for a long time and immediately grabbed my hand. "Mr. Wong, you're finally here. There's still some business that needs your guidance. I'm glad you're finally letting go of your wife and focusing on work." I lowered my head to organize the documents. He sneered. "It's your ex-wife," I corrected him. "We're divorced now." The vice president was momentarily stunned, then sighed knowingly. "You've done so much for the Liu family over the years, and not to mention the business. But tell me, which successful CEO would cook and clean for his wife? You did all that for her, and yet she never even gave you a second glance. It's better this way, really." I chuckled. Yes, everyone saw how much I gave, but the person I lived with, the one closest to me, never noticed. It really wasn't worth it. That evening, when I returned home, I began packing my things. I had never paid much attention before, but as I packed, I realized how little in this home truly belonged to me. The apartment I had bought was filled with Noah's belongings. Stuffed animals I had bought for her, designer bags I had picked out, pink flowers I had handcrafted, and a rabbit lamp, among other things. Anything Noah liked, I would buy for her, but Noah would only say thanks and toss everything aside. Soon, the entire place was full of her things, leaving no space for mine. It was then I realized how small and insignificant I was in this relationship. I immediately called a moving company and had everything I owned moved out. I threw away all the things Noah never bothered to open. If she didn't want them, I would handle them. By the time I finished moving, I was drenched in sweat at the community gate. Just then, Noah walked by with a group of people. Maria, Noah's best friend, who always looked down on me, saw me in such a pathetic state and immediately raised her voice. "Isn't this Noah's door guard? Did you forget to wear your leash today? Why are you out here instead of at home cooking?" I didn't respond. Turning to walk away, Maria picked up a water bottle from the ground and threw it at my head. "Pick up your trash. Aren't you deaf? There's a bottle here. Why don't you pick it up and sell it for money?" She laughed hysterically. Since Noah and I got together, Maria had often humiliated me, and Noah never stopped her. Everyone assumed Noah was fine with it. In their eyes, I was just a lowly person who didn't belong in their circle. If it were before, I would have smiled and apologized. But today, I had no intention of doing that. I sneered, If I were a trash collector, I'd start with you. I turned to leave, but she grabbed my arm. Who told you to leave? I had always been the one to lower myself for them. But now I was pushing back, infuriating all the privileged heirs. I was forced to turn back, and that's when I saw Noah in another man's arms, silently staring at me. She said, "Trash collector, don't talk big. It's meaningless. Look clearly, Samuel is back, and we're the perfect match. He's the one for me. I suggest you don't make a fool of yourself and leave." The man with Noah looked me up and down. His platinum blonde hair, luxury brand clothes, and overall rebellious vibe screamed celebrity. No wonder Noah had been chasing him all these years. Samuel extended his hand, but his eyes were full of arrogance. "So you're Noah's husband, right? I'm Samuel?" Before he finished speaking, Noah grabbed his hand, blocking him from me. She said sweetly, "Samuel, don't misunderstand. You left years ago, and I wasn't going to sit around. What's this talk about husbands? I only have eyes for you. Don't you see my feelings?" She placed his hand on her chest and looked at him affectionately. The crowd erupted into cheers. "Get together, get together." Maria took the opportunity to suggest, "Samuel just returned to the country and is unfamiliar with everything. Why not let him stay at Noah's place? You can take care of him." She nudged me and said, "Brother-in-law, you wouldn't mind, would you?" Noah's gaze suddenly shifted to me. Everyone knew how deeply I loved her. Anything could be discussed, but if it involved Noah, I would get jealous and lose my mind. I chuckled lightly and said, "Sure, no problem." Hearing this, Noah immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Everyone, holding bottles of alcohol, surrounded Samuel and headed to the house. They were having a great time, completely disregarding me, perhaps feeling guilty. Noah came to find me alone. "David, you know Samuel's been abroad for so long. I'm not at ease with him living alone. He'll stay at our place for a few days. Don't get petty and complain to my mom." I sneered. We were getting divorced. Even if it were to be discussed, what did it matter? And did she ever think about how hard it was for me to give up everything for her? To get used to everything on my own? To suffer through it all? Noah could consider Samuel's comfort, but when it came to me, she couldn't see a thing. With a blank expression, I replied calmly, "It's fine. He can stay as long as he wants. I don't mind after all. I would be leaving soon." Noah must have expected me to get angry or complain to her mom, but she didn't anticipate that I would be this calm, as if I were talking about someone else's business. However, she had no time to think further. She was too happy to finally have time alone with Samuel. Noah, afraid I might change my mind, put Samuel's luggage in the biggest bedroom the very next day. But unexpectedly, I didn't come home for the entire week. Noah was thrilled, as this gave her and her idol more time alone. She personally washed Samuel's clothes, hung his intimate garments on the balcony, and even tried cooking, busy making him heart-shaped bento boxes. Noah not only happily cooked, covered in oil, but also seemed to enjoy playing the little wife. She posted many photos on social media, but because Samuel's identity couldn't be publicly exposed, she could only subtly show off her affection. She posted, "Cooking for someone I like, even if I burn myself, it's happiness," and "A simple 3 dishes and a soup? Is this the taste of home? Happiness bubbling up? I wish I could stay home every day." Some unaware followers commented, "Has Noah finally fallen for her brother-in-law?" Noah quickly replied, "Not him. He's not worthy of eating the food I make." I sneered and refreshed the page, only to find the comment had been deleted. Noah then suddenly sent me a message asking, "Why haven't you been home? Where have you been? Samuel wants to eat pig stomach soup. Hurry back and make it for him." I didn't even need to guess. Noah must have been furious, but she would never admit it. She probably missed the meals I used to make, always remembering her preferences. No matter how complicated the dish, I would gladly learn it just for her. In the week she had to cook herself, she realized how much effort went into what seemed simple. After just 1 week, she was already exhausted. But I had done this for her for 5 years, without a word. Thinking about this, Noah decided to call me. In the past, I would always report to her wherever I went. This week, I had vanished without a trace, and I didn't actively check on her either. Before Noah could dial, I quickly sent her a message. "I'm in the hospital. I won't be coming back for a while." The photo showed 4 drops in my hand, which she would recognize as mine. In reality, I was fine, and the picture was from years ago. But now that I decided to divorce, I had no desire to engage with Noah and bring unnecessary trouble. The chat box lit up with typing, then disappeared, and Noah finally sent me a long voice message. She asked, "Are you mute? You can't even say you're sick and instead act like you're dead to get my attention. How boring. Don't forget to take your medicine. Don't go and die. I'll be a widow then." From Noah's awkward voice message, I could tell she was somewhat worried, but I immediately shook my head. How could Noah care about me? All she cared about was Samuel. She was probably glad I wasn't coming back so she could have more time alone with him. But a few days later, I still returned home. I had left some important documents behind when I moved out, so I needed to pick them up. At 8 o'clock, I opened the door, and the first thing I saw was Noah and Samuel having dinner together, gazing at each other lovingly. I frowned and told myself I just had to hold on for another week, and I would finally be free. I walked in with a furrowed brow, but to my surprise, Noah didn't scold me. Instead, she invited me to join them. "David, we're having hot pot tonight. I remember it's your favorite. You're the man of this house. Come eat with us." I froze. This was the first time Noah acknowledged me as the man of the house in front of an outsider, especially in front of Samuel, the man she was madly in love with. Since she said that, I couldn't refuse her face, so I sat next to them. Noah barely ate anything during the hot pot. She kept busy, making sauce for Samuel, cooking the food, and serving him, almost never taking her eyes off him. Samuel gave me a half smile as he not only demanded Noah feed him directly, but also leaned in closer to her from time to time, acting like they were inseparable. I watched coldly, saying nothing, just eating my own food. Samuel, clearly disappointed, suddenly stood up to serve me soup. Mr. Wong, this nourishing soup was specially made by Noah at 3 a.m. this morning. It's pretty good. You should try it," he said. As he stood up to serve the soup, he lost his balance and spilled the entire bowl. Noah screamed and instinctively grabbed Samuel's hand, carefully checking for burns. But where Noah couldn't see, I felt the scalding soup pour onto my chest. My chest turned red and swollen instantly. I held back from screaming but could feel my skin forming blisters. The pain shot through me like needles. I couldn't help but gasp. She turned to me in a panic. "David, are you okay?" Noah rushed to check on me, and for the first time I saw real worry in her eyes. She exclaimed, "How did you get burned like this? Let's get you to the hospital right away." Though Noah's concern seemed genuine, I just gritted my teeth and remained silent. Samuel muttered, "Big guy, just a few blisters. It's nothing." Unlike me, who had to worry about my hands for the tour, his complaint grabbed Noah's full attention. She rushed to his side, examining his hands, which had 2 faint red spots from splashed oil. Samuel scoffed, shaking her hand off. "What's the big deal? You should go check on David. I'm fine." Noah insisted, "You're crazy. Your hands are crucial for your music and performances. You're a top star. You've never been hurt like this." "No, we're getting you checked out." Samuel's words, coupled with his downcast expression, pushed Noah to take his hand and rush out the door. But she stopped for a moment, turned to me, and apologized. "You know Samuel's a star. He needs to take care of his skin more than anyone. I'll take him to the hospital. You go by yourself." I watched them leave, their figures fading from sight. Only then did I feel the searing pain in my chest. I called my assistant and drove myself to the hospital to have the burn treated. Upon arrival at the burn unit, the entrance was already surrounded by security, and ordinary people couldn't get through. A nurse, seeing my injury, quickly suggested, "Sir, the burn unit has been rented by Miss Liu today. You should go to another hospital. You don't want to delay treatment." I heard her boyfriend was burned. She's so frantic. She spent a fortune to rent out the entire floor and hire top specialists. Miss Liu's crazy in love. It's just like a storybook. Yeah, I just saw them. They really are a perfect match. Perfect match. I couldn't help but laugh. A married woman bringing another man to the hospital, abandoning her husband, all for some celebrity. These two were a perfect match. After getting my wounds treated at another hospital, I quickly went home to grab my documents. Just as I was finishing up, I received a message from my parents. It was a video from them and some family friends abroad. The background was the villa where I grew up, with my parents' warm smiles and welcoming words, filling me with a sudden warmth. That was the environment I knew, where I was meant to spread my wings. 5 years ago, I had come to this unfamiliar place, and now, with my parents aging, it was time for me to go back and take over the family business. I was tired of this game, tired of pretending with these rich kids. Over the past few years, I had established myself in the mainland market. Deep down, I knew I was an entrepreneur, someone who should be immersed in the world of fame and fortune, showcasing what I'd learned. I was fortunate that my parents and friends supported me. This long-lost support made me sigh with relief, and I felt the weight that had been pressing on my chest for so long lift with that exhale. At that moment, I felt incredibly light and free. I began staying at the company, preparing thoroughly for a remote project that was a week away. I silenced my phone and set it aside, focusing entirely on sorting out the company's finances. By the time everything was in order, several days had passed. When I finally opened my phone again, I saw dozens of missed calls and messages, all from Noah. I was astonished. Before this, Noah had almost never reached out to me, let alone sent so many messages. Just as I was frozen in surprise, an unknown call came through. I instinctively answered, and immediately, the sound of angry accusations filled my ears. The voice on the other end yelled, "You watchdog, where have you been? Don't you know Noah's been going crazy trying to find you? Don't think disappearing like this will get my sister's attention. I'll tell you, Samuel is the one who deserves her, not you. You're not even worthy of carrying my sister's shoes. Stop dreaming." Before I could respond, Maria hung up, leaving me confused. Noah was looking for me. Why would Noah be looking for me? The woman who came and went like the wind, who hated being constrained by anyone, who never bothered to ask where I was? Could her best friend have made a mistake? When I checked my phone again, I saw 99 missed calls, all from Noah. It seemed Noah was genuinely trying to reach me. Not wanting to leave anything unresolved on the last day, I decided to go home, still feeling perplexed. As soon as I entered the housekeeper came rushing out with tears in her eyes. "Mr. Wong, you're finally back. You don't know what it's been like while you were gone. Miss Noah wasn't happy with the food we made and criticized everything we did. She wouldn't let us do anything and told us to leave. She was furious." Then the butler came out, tears streaming down his face as he began blaming Noah for everything. I finally understood. Noah had gotten used to my care, and once I was gone, she started taking out her frustration on everyone. But what did it matter? I was about to disappear completely from Noah's life. No matter how uncomfortable she was, she would have to face the reality. I glanced around at the scattered trash and clothes on the floor. Frowning, I picked up the clothes and placed them on the couch. The couch made a slight noise, and to my surprise, there was Noah. Her face flushed from drinking. She looked at me with a mix of annoyance and amusement. "So you finally decided to come home. Where have you been all this time?" I looked down at her, speaking calmly. "I had some business to attend to, had to go on a business trip." Noah furrowed her brow. "I never knew you cared so much about company matters. You always put me first, didn't you?" It's true that in the past I had always prioritized Noah, but what she didn't know was that it was part of my work. I once had feelings for Noah, but I also knew how fragile those feelings were. They couldn't compare to the straightforward benefits of business. Since I couldn't obtain affection, I had to secure the benefits I deserved in the commercial world. But I hesitated. If it weren't for protecting Noah, I should have already returned home to take charge of my family's business rather than stay here playing the house husband. But I couldn't tell her that. So I just took a sip of water and replied indifferently, "The company has a lot going on lately, so I've been busy." Noah's anger seemed insurmountable, but she had no other way to express it. All she could do was complain with a touch of petulance. I know I messed up last time. It wasn't intentional. I didn't mean to leave you hanging. But you know how Samuel is. He's fragile. Celebrities are constantly in the spotlight. They can't afford to be even slightly hurt. He got hurt in my house, so I had to take responsibility for it. Don't be petty about it. And besides, you agreed to let him stay here in the first place. Why make such a big deal now? She sighed dramatically. Anyway, I've already had him move out. You can stop fussing now. Just move back in. There was a hint of reproach in Noah's tone. I knew exactly why. My presence had forced Samuel to move out so Noah couldn't live with her favorite idol. But I didn't care. I merely nodded, knowing Noah had no serious issue. So I could leave without worry. Just as I turned to walk away, Noah called out to me, "Darling?" Her voice was unusually sweet, almost coquettish. "I'm starving. It's been so long since I've had your cooking. Can you make me a meal?" I turned back to face her, snickering as I pointed at the white bandage on my chest. "You seem to have forgotten that I'm still injured." Noah froze for a moment when she saw the large bandage beneath my white shirt. She had indeed forgotten about my injury, and hers was far worse than Samuel's. She could only cough to cover her awkwardness. "I remember, of course. I do. That's why I brought you a gift, to make up for it," she said. Then Noah stood up, lightly trailing her fingers over my chest. She quickly unfastened the shoulder strap of her silk robe, revealing a flash of skin. I watched as Noah made a move toward me, her provocative gestures darkening my eyes. It had been 5 years, and this was the first time Noah was willing to come close to me. Although we were married, Noah had always looked down on me. She never let me touch her, and even when we slept, I was forced to sleep in the study. I wasn't sure why she was suddenly so proactive. Was she trying to make up for her past neglect of me for the sake of her first love? I had hoped for this kind of intimacy before, but not in this way. A sense of mockery surged within me. What I once desired now seemed beneath me. Noah, still playing the seductress, noticed that I remained indifferent, with no sign of interest. She began to panic slightly. "The atmosphere isn't right today. Let's have a candlelit dinner sometime soon, a little drink. After all, you're my husband, and there are some things we should put on the agenda." Before she could finish, her friend Maria rushed into the room. "Samuel, how could Noah possibly be mad at you when she likes you so much?" Maria said, pulling Samuel in. Upon seeing Noah in her seductive attire, Maria exclaimed in surprise, "You see, Noah is doing everything she can to win you back. She even learned girl group dances for you, and look, she's all dressed up." Samuel, seeing Noah in such an outfit, blushed deeply. Noah opened her mouth but offered no explanation. I lowered my head and chuckled coldly. Then, without hesitation, I shoved Noah, dressed in her seductive sleepwear, directly into Samuel's arms. "Since you're dressing up for him, why be shy?" I said. Noah's face turned bright red and she lowered her head, hiding in Samuel's arms but couldn't resist sneaking a glance at me. She didn't understand why I was being so generous today. Something felt off, but she couldn't pinpoint it. However, Noah soon stopped thinking about it. She became immersed in the warm embrace of Samuel, swaying seductively in the dim, charged atmosphere. The guests cheered and clapped, egging them on. "Noah is really going all out, a lady who studied everything from classical music to painting and calligraphy, willing to give it all up just to please Samuel," one of them said. "Yeah. Did you see that necklace Samuel's wearing? It's the pigeon blood ruby that Noah's family has passed down for generations. There's no other like it. Noah gave it to him." "A really big gesture," another chimed in. "Noah has been chasing Samuel for so long. Even a stone would melt in her hands. She's willing to follow him all over the world, work for him, and even pay for his concerts. This is what you call true devotion," someone else added. "Yeah, Samuel, that celebrity you announced before, she can't compare to Noah. If you gave the word, Noah would marry you in a heartbeat. Why don't you just kiss her and make it official?" Kiss, kiss. The crowd cheered as they laughed and clapped around me. I calmly sipped my wine, quietly observing. I watched as they surrounded my wife and another man, encouraging them to declare their love for one another. At that moment, my assistant entered from outside, walked up to me, and respectfully whispered in my ear, "Mr. Wong, everything has been arranged for your trip abroad. The private jet your wife arranged is ready. It will take off in 2 hours. Is there anything else you would like to arrange?" I took the file he handed me, opened it just a crack, and saw the stamped documents. I let out a deep sigh of relief, looking at the people around me dancing wildly in the chaos of the home I had long since grown tired of. I realized that in 2 hours, I would be leaving all of this behind. I would return to the life of a CEO, to the long-awaited freedom. The red wine in my glass seemed all the more delicious, the taste rich and satisfying. I laughed genuinely and shook my head. "I don't have any other arrangements, just get ready to leave." But then I turned to give another instruction. "Oh, by the way, I don't want anyone to know I'm leaving. If Miss asks about my whereabouts, you don't need to tell her." My assistant looked up in surprise, disbelief evident on his face. Why should I bother with farewells? For 5 years, I had relentlessly shown kindness to Noah, not only because of our childhood bond, but also due to the terms of a contract. It was my mother-in-law's wish for Noah to move on from her sadness. Now the 5-year agreement is up, and I have fulfilled my part of the contract perfectly. It seems Noah has moved on from her sorrow, especially now that Samuel is back. Whether I stay or leave, Noah surely wouldn't care. I smiled and explained, "I don't want to stir up trouble. Keep it quiet that I'm leaving. Just do as I say." The loud music blared in the background, and a high-pitched voice suddenly cut through the noise, asking, "Leaving? Where are you going?" I turned around to see Noah, her face full of shock. My brow twitched, but I quickly calmed myself, pointing to my injury. "It's nothing. My wound got infected. I'm going to the hospital. You should go find your Samuel," I said. Noah's eyes flashed with confusion. "Why do you keep pushing me toward Samuel?" Her sudden question caught me off guard. For 5 years, every time Noah silently left me to find Samuel. Did I still need a reason? Why was she so bewildered now? I didn't dwell on it, just smiled and replied, "Because I need to go to the hospital. I can't hang out with you guys. Don't you and Samuel get along well? Go have fun with him." I maintained a calm expression, and though Noah felt something was off, she didn't press the matter further. Maria, her best friend, grabbed Noah and ran to Samuel. The two of them began cutting into a cake, and Samuel playfully smeared a piece of cake on Noah's nose. Noah blushed and lowered her head shyly, while the crowd around them grew louder. "Get together! Get together!" I sat quietly, neither stopping them nor participating. I just pulled out my phone and checked the time. In an hour, my flight would take off. I wanted to savor this final moment of solitude. However, to Maria, my silence seemed like deep sadness. She deliberately handed me the microphone and questioned, "Are you feeling like a lost dog now, seeing two people so perfectly matched? Do you think you're no longer worthy of Noah, that you've fallen so low? Today, in front of everyone, if you're sensible, you'll step aside. We'll all admire you for being a man. What do you think?" Noah furrowed her brow and was about to pull Maria away, but I took the microphone from her. "All right, since Miss Lou likes Samuel, I'll do the noble thing and step aside. I'll divorce her and make room for them," I declared. Noah froze, stunned, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. The room fell silent. After all, everyone knew how deeply I loved Noah. I had worked so hard for this marriage. How could I just give it up? Maria was the first to laugh. "Ah, another act of self-sacrifice. Right, last time you used this trick, making Noah worry for days. It won't work this time." Hearing this, Noah visibly relaxed, her expression softening. I adjusted my clothes, stood up and said, "The divorce agreement is on the bedside table in the bedroom. Believe it or not, I wish you both a happy ending. I'm leaving now." As I walked away without a second glance, Noah felt a sudden sense of unease. She subconsciously told herself that I was just joking, as Maria had said. But as she watched my resolute figure disappear, her heart began to race. Noah didn't understand why she felt so anxious. so she ignored everyone trying to stop her and called out to me with a desperate voice, "David, come back." But her voice was drowned out by the music, and she was stopped by the crowd around her. Maria said, "Samuel is still here? Why do you care about that guy? It's pointless. Didn't you get fooled by him? Don't bother with him. Let's continue having fun." Noah looked at my already disappeared figure, letting go of her worries. She turned her attention back to the dance floor, thinking to herself, "Whatever happens, happens later. After all, it didn't matter much if she didn't deal with it today." Meanwhile, I had already reached the tarmac, putting on my headset and boarding the plane. As the plane took off and I watched the city I had lived in for 5 years slowly shrink into the distance, I felt a sense of relief. The oppressive life was finally coming to an end. Goodbye, Noah. Goodbye, F-City. Goodbye to this unbearable marriage. And now my life was about to begin anew. I relaxed into my seat, a light smile tugging at my lips, and soon fell into a deep sleep. Noah continued to play and party with the others. The group moved on to a seaside villa, celebrating until dawn. By the time Noah was tired and ready to return, 5 days had passed. The house was empty. Noah absent-mindedly called my name, but after calling several times, there was no answer. Only the housekeeper came out to greet her. "Where is he?" Noah asked. The housekeeper handed her a cup of tea and took the bag from her hands before hesitantly responding, "Mr. Wong hasn't been home for many days. Perhaps he's too busy with work." Furious, Noah knocked over the tea in her hand and stormed into the house. This wasn't the first time I had ignored her. The last time, I had been burned, and Noah had worriedly sent me many messages. I hadn't replied, and in my petty mood, had stayed at the office for a long time without coming home. Noah had thought she'd been understanding enough. But I had to make such a scene again, running away from home at the slightest provocation. It really made her angry. As she walked through the house, something felt off. It seemed like there was less stuff around. The wall paintings were gone. Many of the figurines and trinkets were missing. Even the framed photo of the two of us was nowhere to be found. That photo was something I always kept close. No matter how messy the house was, I would always clean and maintain it. But now, it was gone without a trace. Noah's heart sank, and the uneasy feeling quickly turned to unexplainable fear. She began to search for any trace of my belongings, but after a long time, it was as if I had disappeared into thin air. Everything I had left behind was gone. And so was I. Breathing heavily, Noah tried to collect her thoughts and suddenly remembered something I had said at the party a few days ago. She rushed into the bedroom and opened the nightstand. What caught her eye was a document. The moment she saw the heading, Noah's face turned ashen. The document was clearly titled Divorce Agreement. When Noah frantically flipped to the last page to check the signature, she saw her own name at the bottom. She collapsed to the floor, her mind spinning. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. The signature was unmistakably hers, written in her handwriting, not printed. But when had she signed this divorce agreement? She tried to recall and suddenly realized that during dinner and drinking porridge, I had handed her a contract. At the time, she was busy chatting with Samuel and didn't even look at it. Could that contract have been the divorce agreement? Noah clenched the document tightly, crumpling it in frustration. She seemed to be venting her anger as she balled it up and threw it into the corner. I had actually initiated the divorce. It was ridiculous. Had I forgotten when I proposed to her, kneeling on broken glass with blood pouring from my knees, swearing in front of everyone that I would love her forever? Had I forgotten these 5 years where I had done everything? Cooking, cleaning, doing laundry, all to win her favor? These 5 years had passed, and only when Samuel returned had I begun to get jealous. How laughable. Noah was sure that once I had calmed down, I would come back to her. Embarrassed, she hadn't paid attention to the divorce agreement because she was completely confident that no one in this world, except me, would love her with such intensity and devotion. Perhaps Noah had thrown such a tantrum that even the housekeeper wisely avoided mentioning my name. It wasn't until her best friend Maria noticed Noah hadn't been out to socialize lately that she decided to visit her at home. When Maria walked into the room, she was shocked by the disarray. The curtains were drawn, pillows scattered everywhere. She put her hands on her hips and said angrily, "Where's that good-for-nothing David? Why hasn't he come to clean up?" The housekeeper hesitated and replied, "Mr. Wong has been away for several days." Maria, taken aback, asked, "He hasn't come back since the party that day." She had thought David's mention of divorce was just a joke. After all, a young lady like Noah from the Liu family was a woman of such stature that David, a man of humble origins, could never reach in his lifetime. Who would truly divorce the Liu family's daughter just out of a moment of anger? The housekeeper added a few more details and mentioned the divorce agreement in the nightstand. That's when Maria realized, with a jolt of realization, that she had been wrong. Looking at Noah, who was lying listlessly on the couch with a vacant expression, Maria began to think bitterly. Without David, Noah could be with Samuel, and they could openly become the golden couple everyone envied. But because of David, everything in their circle is in chaos. The more Maria thought about it, the more she despised David. She quickly took Noah's arm and tried to cheer her up. "Isn't it a good thing that this unlucky star is gone? Samuel's back in town. Noah, don't you think it's time to consider your future? I've been waiting for Samuel to be my real brother-in-law." Noah suddenly shoved her away and snapped, "What nonsense are you talking about?" Maria staggered backward and fell to the floor. She knew full well the power of Noah's position in the Liu family and didn't dare to argue back. "Noah, David has already divorced you. Isn't that the perfect opportunity for you and Samuel to be together? Why not just be with him?" Noah's face darkened and she shot back angrily, "Who said we're divorced? Our matters are none of your business." But Maria's words, combined with the fact that she couldn't get through to my phone lately, made Noah realize the painful truth. David really did want a divorce. He wasn't joking. In a fit of rage, Noah grabbed everything on the table and slammed it to the floor. All these years, she had been generous with me, yet now I was the one who brought up divorce. She thought for a moment and immediately contacted her assistant at the company, saying, "Tell David to stop hiding at the office. Call him and have him come home right now." On the other end, the assistant had clearly been prepared for her call and answered smoothly, "Miss Liu, Mr. Wong has already resigned from his position as general manager here and has not been at the company for some time. We haven't been able to contact him." Furious, Noah hung up the phone and dialed my number again, but as expected, it went unanswered. Refusing to give up, she tried David's number again, but it went unanswered. She tried calling Maria's phone, the housekeeper's, and everyone else's, but each time a robotic female voice informed her, "Sorry, the number you've dialed is no longer in service. Please try again later." I hadn't just blocked her, I had completely canceled my phone number. Noah's mind was in chaos, overwhelmed with frustration and anger. She immediately drove out, running several red lights and aimlessly driving around the streets. Only when she calmed down did she realize she had no idea where to look for me. She only knew I worked as a low-level employee in their company, but she had never bothered to ask about my background, where I was from, where I lived, or even what my other hobbies were. So she gritted her teeth and headed to Liu Corporation. Even though she was the eldest daughter of the Liu family, she never took part in the family business and felt a bit nervous. When she met with the vice president, she quickly asked politely, "Uncle Lee, do you know where David is?" The vice president glanced at Noah, then continued with his work, replying sarcastically, "You've been married to David for 5 years, and you're asking me about him? How would I know where he is? David's office is right next door. Why don't you go check for yourself? You don't even know where he works." Noah was left speechless. She truly had no idea where to find me, and it was only with the assistant's guidance that she ended up in my office. The large office was furnished with a folding bed and some of my personal belongings because Noah often got angry and made me go to the office to sleep. This place had nearly become a second home for me. A pang of sympathy flashed in Noah's eyes as she realized how bad things had gotten for me when she wasn't looking. She never knew that I'd been living in such a miserable state when she wasn't around. But now the world was so big. and she didn't know where to look for me. She gazed out the window at the twinkling lights of countless homes. None of them seemed to shine for her. At that moment, Noah felt a deep ache in her chest. In the past, I would always wait up for her, leaving a light on at home no matter how late she came back. It was a warmth she had only come to appreciate after losing it, but now I had decisively left her. Just as Noah was lost in these thoughts, Lou Mother called, "Noah, come home. There's something we need to discuss." With a sigh, Lou Mother continued, "Since you and David have divorced, and things with you and Samuel have become so public, how about considering reconnecting with Samuel? I've been waiting for Samuel to be your real brother-in-law." With a sigh, Noah impatiently cut her off. "Mom, I haven't agreed to divorce him." Lou Mother was stunned into silence for a long moment before replying, "But David has already sent the divorce certificate to the house, don't you know?" Hearing Noah's silence on the other end of the line, Lou Mother realized that Noah still didn't know the divorce was already a done deal. She thought David simply hadn't told Noah he was leaving abroad, but she hadn't expected him to keep it so well hidden. Noah didn't expect her own mother to know about the divorce. While she had been kept in the dark, looking at the divorce certificate her mother had sent, Noah felt a tightness in her chest, her anger nearly choking her. She had thought that David had only signed the divorce agreement with her, but a month had passed, and he had already gone ahead and completed the divorce without her knowing. The 1-month cooling-off period had already passed. It suddenly hit her. David had already decided to divorce her a month ago, and she had been completely oblivious. Noah felt a pang of sorrow. Meanwhile, Lou Mother continued lamenting, "Back then, when you were so depressed over Samuel, I asked David to help you. Now that Samuel has returned to the country, maybe it's time for you two to reconnect. Why don't you—" Noah cut her off sharply. "That's not going to happen. I never agreed to a divorce." Noah didn't know why, but every time Samuel's name was mentioned, she felt a sense of discomfort, as if a knot was tightening in her chest. Though her marriage with David had long been hollow, Noah had grown accustomed to having me by her side. The thought of completely separating from me made her feel uneasy. On one side was me, who loved her unconditionally, and on the other, Samuel, the idol she had chased for so long when she was young. Noah was caught between these two worlds, unable to make a choice. Sensing Noah's hesitation, Lou Mother immediately sent over a contract. Noah opened it with little interest, but the more she read, the wider her eyes grew. At the very end of the contract, she saw my signature. Noah screamed, "Mom, what is this contract about?" Hearing Noah's hysterical cry, Lou Mother's heart sank, and she finally told the truth. "You've forgotten, haven't you? David was the little Wong boy you used to bully when you were young. You grew up together as childhood friends. When you were 8, he went abroad. He saw how upset you were and was worried about you. So I asked him to help you get over it, and the Wong family needed the Liu family's support. So a commercial marriage was quickly arranged. As long as David stayed with Noah for 5 years and helped her recover from her heartbreak, after that, they would part ways and go their separate routes." To be fair, David had done his part well. He had let go of his rich family background, set aside his pride, and devoted himself entirely to helping Noah. There was even a moment when Lou Mother thought David would always be there for Noah, and she had started to see him as her real son-in-law. But who could have anticipated this outcome? Even after 5 years, Noah remained unaffected by him. She stayed resolute and had even embarrassed him by introducing Samuel into their home. Consequently, when David finally requested a divorce, Lou's mother felt that there was no further action to take. She continued to babble on the phone, but Noah no longer paid any attention to her. Noah gazed at the commercial marriage contract, meticulously reading each clause, almost in disbelief. Could all 5 years of David's unwavering, almost canine devotion have been merely a stipulation in this contract designed to honor his promise? Yet the genuine love and passion he had shown when he proposed were unmistakable in her memory. Noah had seen that sincerity clearly. If David hadn't loved her, how could he have so patiently cared for her through every drunken evening, preparing meals and hangover cures? If he hadn't loved her, Why would he have endured the embarrassment from her best friend and stayed by her willingly? However, the contract was undeniable. It detailed everything David had pledged to do for her, from mundane tasks like doing laundry and cooking to larger commitments like respecting Noah's privacy. Everything was documented in black and white, and the more Noah read, the colder she felt inside. It became apparent that all of David's kindness had been orchestrated from the start, part of a predetermined arrangement. The special attention Noah believed David had for her was, in reality, devoid of genuine affection. A fragile hope that Noah had carefully maintained was completely shattered. Her heart ached intensely, and she couldn't contain her emotions any longer. She began to cry uncontrollably. On the other end of the phone, Lou's mother was also taken aback. She remembered her daughter as always proud and reserved, almost aloof towards everyone. Even when Samuel had ended their relationship, Noah hadn't cried out of a sense of dignity lost. Lou's mother attempted to comfort her several times, but every time the words were about to leave her mouth, she swallowed them back. Perhaps only by experiencing matters of the heart could one truly grasp their own emotions. When Noah finally exhausted her tears, she whispered through her sobs, "Mom, you must know where David is now, right?" Lou's mother sighed deeply upon hearing her daughter's hopeful plea. Not only had David requested that his location remain undisclosed, but it was also part of their agreement. Legally, she was obligated to keep it a secret. "Noah, I've made a promise I can't break," she replied. Besides, David is very meticulous. Even if she knew, what good would it do? David was always a man who planned ahead. He must have anticipated this scenario, which is why when Lou's mother had inquired whether he would return to inherit the family business, his response had been vague. Even she didn't know where he was now. Noah's final ray of hope vanished. She never imagined David would depart so completely and decisively. He had once abruptly entered her life, and now he was leaving without a trace. Noah hung up the phone blankly, sitting in the empty living room, speechless and with her mind completely blank. At that moment, her phone rang unexpectedly. Instinctively, Noah answered. A voice on the other end said, "Noah, where are you? Samuel is in trouble. Come quickly." When Noah arrived at the bar, she saw a crowd surrounding Samuel. She didn't recognize most of them, but she did recognize Sophia, Samuel's previously announced fiancée, standing at the front. Pushing through the throng, her friend Maria grabbed her arm urgently. "Noah, come here. These people are causing trouble for Samuel." As Maria spoke, all eyes in the room fixed on Noah, and Sophia glared at her intensely, her gaze almost piercing. Noah was confused. No one had ever dared to confront her so openly before. Frowning, Noah asked, "What are you doing here?" Sophia, a former actress, sneered. "You have been an actress," Sophia retorted. "And what about you? A shameless woman clinging to a married man? You just can't resist someone else's husband, can you?" Noah's anger flared. Despite often pursuing Samuel over the past 5 years, she had never crossed any boundaries. Even when she had given him gifts, it was always in public, with no private exchanges between them. Sophia, once a renowned figure, was now a fading star. In reality, she was the heiress to the Shen family business, having been abroad managing business affairs and studying at a business school. Sophia and Samuel had fallen in love during a project, but she later decided to leave the entertainment industry to support her family. Due to her hectic schedule and their differing careers, their relationship gradually faded, providing Noah the opportunity to grow closer to Samuel. When Sophia realized what was happening, she had people investigate. She discovered that while she was busy with work, Samuel and Noah had been traveling the world together, spending her money and completely ignoring Sophia, the legitimate fiancée. Sophia, proud and successful, had never been humiliated like this. The thought infuriated her beyond control. Samuel had publicly announced their divorce, but Sophia had never been informed. His declaration was unilateral, one she neither recognized nor would accept. Sophia's expression turned cold as she continued. "Miss Lou, you come from a noble family, yet you're engaging in such behavior. You're married, but still pursuing someone else's husband. That's quite a talent. Sophia's words caused Noah's face to flush with a mix of anger and shame. She clenched her fists and retorted, "I'm already divorced." Gasps filled the room, especially from Samuel, who stared at Noah in disbelief. Samuel had always been aware of Noah's deep affection for him, but he had never reciprocated those feelings. He had always viewed her as a friend, nothing more. However, after marrying Sophia and moving abroad, they had grown apart. Over time, he realized how invaluable Noah's selfless love had been. A woman willing to give up everything for him was rare and precious. Gradually, Samuel found himself drawn into Noah's flattery. In her eyes, he wasn't past his prime, but a shining star. Noah would thoughtfully prepare gifts for him and cling to him like a little woman, unlike Sophia, who handled everything independently, making him feel emasculated and suffocated. Even though he knew Noah had been married for years, he believed that if he signaled, Noah would return to his side without hesitation. Their transgressions became more frequent, leading Samuel to decide to stop pretending. Without informing Sophia, he returned to his home country, wanting to test his feelings and determine who he truly loved and wished to spend his life with. His previous marriage had only been an experiment, not the final outcome. Once back home, Noah became even more attentive towards him, neglecting her husband entirely. Samuel repeatedly provoked Noah, and each time she stood by his side. She even offered him her house to stay in. However, the more time he spent with Noah, the more he realized he didn't have romantic feelings for her. His feelings were rooted in gratitude and guilt, leading him to indulge her every time. To outsiders, they appeared to be an ambiguous couple. Every time Samuel tried to explain, he feared hurting Noah. Now, hearing that Noah was divorcing her husband for him, his heart ached even more. Sophia, bypassing Noah, embraced Samuel and said, "Darling, I've neglected your feelings. I've ignored you for so long, and I'm sorry. I won't do it again. I'll spend more time with you. Will you come home with me? We're not divorced yet. There's still a chance to start over, don't you think?" Samuel hesitated, looking into Sophia's tear-filled eyes. This woman, tough on the outside, was soft within, the very softness that had once made Samuel fall for her. He had loved Sophia deeply before, and even now he couldn't push her away. Anxious, Noah cried out, "No, Samuel, you can't agree to this." She was completely panicked. David had already left her. Did that mean she was going to lose Samuel too? Samuel's departure had struck her deeply, and she didn't want to endure the same pain again. Her best friend, Maria, interjected, "Samuel, after all this time, can't you see that Noah is the one who's truly good for you?" Samuel looked at Sophia in her arms, then glanced at the distressed Noah and sighed deeply, as if making up his mind. "Noah, thank you for all the love you've shown me over the years, but I truly only see you as a sister." Noah was utterly stunned. "No, that's not true," she almost stammered. "I've liked you since the moment you debuted. I've always supported you, voted for you, treated you like my idol. I've done so many things to stand by your side. How can you reject me?" Samuel pushed Noah away, his voice cold. "I know you've done a lot for me, but there's always a layer of distance between an idol and a fan. The version of me you see may be filtered, but in reality, I'm weak and can never refuse anyone. Sophia is the one I've truly loved. I'll always remember the kindness you've shown me, but continuing to delay your future is my fault. And David treats you very well. I'm ashamed to compare. I'm sorry to have disturbed your life. From now on, we part ways. Let's not meet again." As Samuel's final words echoed, Noah felt her heart shatter. Sophia took him and a group of people away, leaving Noah alone to drown her sorrows in alcohol. She downed more than 10 bottles in one go, drinking until she vomited and lost consciousness. Before Lou's mother could take her home, when Noah woke up, she began shouting for more alcohol, refusing to eat, and continuing to harm herself. The repeated abandonments had pushed Noah to the brink of despair. Lou's mother was both anxious and heartbroken, but felt helpless. David had once saved Noah, but this time, no one was there to help her. Surveillance footage from the bar was quickly uploaded by a well-meaning individual and soon made headlines. At that time, David had just finished his 6th meeting of the day. A friend entered his office, handing him his phone with a gossipy grin. "Isn't this the eldest daughter of the Liu family? She's trending now because of those old rumors." David glanced at the phone screen and simply hummed in response. His friend seemed deflated and tentatively asked, "Aren't you upset?" David opened his computer and continued working, replying casually, "Not at all. It's none of my business if it's about strangers." David's friends knew everything about the dramatic events from 5 years ago. He had once kneeled on broken glass for Noah, married her, played the role of a devoted husband, and then had a very public divorce. They all thought he had gone abroad due to a broken heart. So, when they saw Noah's meltdown video, they felt vindicated for him. But David appeared completely unaffected, leaving them confused about his emotions. His friend nudged him with his elbow, clearly frustrated. "What did Noah do to you back then? Just hearing about it makes me angry. I almost want to kick her again." David shook his head and let out a helpless laugh. The truth was, after he went abroad and rejoined his family, he had completely forgotten about the past. One evening, while having dinner with a friend, as they were about to head home later that night, his friend suddenly raised his phone excitedly, interrupting him. "David, is your ex-wife losing it?" David furrowed his brow and took the phone. Upon seeing the news report, he gasped in shock. That's when I understood what my friend meant by losing it. Noah had divorced him, and now Samuel had broken up with her again. Samuel had publicly announced their reconciliation, revealing that he and Sophia had never truly divorced, only experiencing a brief marital conflict. However, Noah was unaware of this. She had given so much only to end up with nothing. Watching others flaunt their love, Noah had completely fallen apart. The once glamorous eldest daughter of the Liu family, who had thrived in the world of fame and fortune, was now a broken mess at home. She refused to leave the house, wouldn't wash her face, brush her teeth, or eat. Not only that, she resorted to self-harm and took non-prescription drugs. Without David's patience and companionship, Noah had almost descended into madness. The paparazzi had caught glimpses of Noah, who had become so emaciated she looked like a skeleton. Her eyes were sunken, her hair dull and dry. She no longer resembled the pampered young lady she once was, instead appearing like a homeless vagabond. Noah became increasingly resentful of the kindness David had shown her. She tried countless times to locate him, but his departure had been meticulously planned, leaving no trace. She had no idea where he was and eventually gave up entirely, allowing herself to spiral further. She began causing scenes at the Liu company every few days, trying to ask everyone who knew David about his whereabouts, even making the company trend online and damaging its reputation. She found some of her old friends who had mocked David and ensured they were punished, forcing Maria out of her own family company and preventing any other company from hiring her, leaving Maria to sink into obscurity. She cried, screamed, and did a series of shocking things, while David simply drove calmly, as if he didn't know Noah at all. From the day the contract was signed, he had always considered Noah just a clause in that contract, wanting to fulfill it quickly so he could leave. After gaining access to all of Liu's company's resources, even when Liu's mother asked him about his future plans, he simply smiled and said nothing. The years of enduring humiliation had allowed him to focus entirely on his career, and he had stopped caring about Noah's affairs. "What's the point of putting on a show after leaving? Noah was only my nominal ex-wife. Now her display of deep emotions only makes me laugh." My initial concern for Noah had been nothing more than a fleeting youthful sentiment. From the bottom of my heart, I never truly loved Noah. So why would I mourn for her now? He dropped his friend off and drove home alone. Now, Wang's company was thriving in the domestic market, and he planned to focus on developing the new energy sector. He had been discussing its future prospects with like-minded friends during this period. His days were incredibly busy, filled with numerous meetings and visits to several prestigious universities for forums. One day, after finishing his work, He was invited to an energy forum at an Ivy League university. Accompanied by his assistant, he arrived just on time. Suddenly, there was a thunderous round of applause. He assumed a major industry leader was arriving to share the latest updates. But when the applause subsided and he finally saw the person on stage, he froze in his seat. The shining big-shot speaker was someone he knew. The girl on stage clearly noticed him and flashed a bright smile. "David, it's been a while." His surprise was genuine, as the girl was none other than Anna, the student he had supported back home. Anna was the same age as him, but had lost both parents at a young age and grew up in an orphanage. When he first saw her, he was struck by her determined gaze and immediately requested that his parents sponsor her education. He thought to himself that someone with such a strong will, unwilling to be defeated by fate, would surely achieve great things one day. He never expected that his small act of kindness would allow this fragile bamboo to grow into a towering forest, lush and vibrant. He had heard from his family that Anna had excelled in her studies and was wholly focused on academics, with no other extracurricular interests. Seeing such a talented young woman now, he felt a deep sense of pride for her. On stage, Anna's eyes shone brightly, filled with affection as she looked at him. His kindness had changed her life forever. She had once dreamed of repaying him by studying hard and growing up to be someone successful. But when she graduated with a PhD, she learned from the news that he had married Noah. Anna felt a pang of regret, but truly wished him well from the bottom of her heart. However, after hearing about the things Noah had done to him, Anna grew more heartbroken. She couldn't bear to see such a kind person suffer, undeserving of such a fate. After the conference, Anna and he talked for a long time. In the end, they shared a silent moment, as though they were old friends who had known each other for years. Anna glanced up at him before quickly shifting her gaze and asked, "Mr. Wang, do you have any plans for the future?" He silently shook his head, replying, "I'll focus on managing the business and expanding the company. As for my personal life," his voice trailed off uncertainly. "To be honest, I have no clear expectations for my personal life." After 5 years of marriage to Noah, he didn't want to start over with someone new and embark on another marriage. Yet, deep inside, he still longed for a happy life. He just didn't know where to begin. Anna's eyes sparkled as she looked at him, and she gently passed him a plate with a slice of steak. "Someone as exceptional as you deserves a better life. Don't worry, I'll always support you, whether it's in business or anything else." He smiled and nodded. He invited Anna to join his company. A year passed in the blink of an eye, and with their joint efforts, Wang's company finally went public. As he watched the employees cheering below, he was filled with mixed emotions. All his hard work had paid off, and everything he had done had been noticed. It was incredibly gratifying. Family and friends congratulated him. "David, the listing went smoothly. Mr. Wang, your future is limitless." The congratulations from his family and friends filled him with a sense of validation, and a warm feeling rose in his chest. He drank a few more glasses of wine in his happiness, and amidst the hazy atmosphere, Anna gently took his hand. They shared a smile, and in each other's eyes, they saw love. A month later, he decided to take Anna back to China, feeling it was time to return to his roots. Although Anna had no parents, she had grown up in China. Before deciding to marry her, he wanted to take her to see his hometown. As soon as they returned to F City, old friends and colleagues flocked to greet them. Some were trying to gain favor, while others were old partners, coming to reconnect and enjoy a meal. They had heard that he had settled abroad and significantly expanded his business. They all admired him and were happy to see how well Anna and he were doing together, so in love with each other. As they chatted, the vice president of his former company suddenly spoke up. "You don't know, but Noah came looking for me recently, asking for your address." He hadn't heard Noah's name in a long time and was momentarily taken aback. The vice president, drunk, continued to complain in a slurred voice. "With the way she treated you back then, how could I ever tell her your address?" She can dream all she wants. He laughed and humored his friends before returning to the new villa he had bought with Anna. Though he was only briefly back in China, he hoped that Anna and he could visit regularly. So he had already purchased their new home as a base for when they decided to settle there. He took Anna out to explore, shopping for all sorts of things, hoping to make up for the lost leisurely moments she hadn't had before. By the time they had everything packed and loaded into the car, the trunk was nearly full, and they were ready to head home and rest. Meanwhile, at the Liu family's old residence, Noah stared blankly at a wedding photo of her and David. Even though it had been 3 years since their divorce, she still couldn't forget him. She had used every resource at her disposal to try and find any trace of David, but had come up empty-handed. This wedding photo, retrieved from the trash, was her only remaining reminder of him. In the picture, Noah stood far from David, but he was smiling broadly. If she could redo the photo, she would hold him tight and tell him that she truly loved him. But after all the time that had passed, she realized it was David's kindness she couldn't forget. At first, she thought David had just been a comfort after leaving Samuel, believing she was in love with him. But when David left, Noah found herself unable to adapt to life without him. Only then did she realize that what she had felt was true love. But with Samuel between them, Noah had ignored her own heart and refused to admit that she had fallen in love with David. Now that David was no longer by her side, she knew she had taken him for granted and regretted not cherishing him sooner. Noah drained a bottle of alcohol in one go when there was a knock on the door. "Miss Liu, will you be attending tomorrow's business forum?" In recent years, Noah had taken over her family's business while searching for any trace of David. She knew he wouldn't give up on work and perhaps was somewhere out there continuing his life. Noah also hoped that by succeeding in business, she could prove to David that she had changed and was no longer the reckless young woman she had once been. She had started attending business forums, and this one would be no different. He too had seen the guest list and was startled when he saw her name, Anna. Noticing his change in expression, Anna gently said, "If you don't want to go, I can attend alone." He squeezed her hand and smiled. "It's fine," he replied. He knew this day would come and had nothing to hide. "I've already moved on and started a new chapter in my life. There was no need to avoid the past. I owed nothing to the Liu family, nor to Noah." The day of the forum arrived and all the important figures from F-City attended. Noah was among them, gracefully mingling with the elites, holding a glass of wine and engaging in conversations with various business people. She wondered if 5 years ago, David had also been in the same situation, navigating countless conversations with strangers. Back then, she had demanded that David always be by her side, ready to drop everything for her. But now she found herself lost in her memories, longing for what they had shared. Just then, a familiar voice reached her ears, and she froze in place, stunned. It was him, David, just as she had imagined, tall and handsome, with an aura of calm confidence, surrounded by people. He was laughing and speaking with ease. Overcome with emotion, Noah shouted his name. In the middle of a conversation, she was heard. Before he could react, someone collided into him. Noah rushed to embrace him, tears in her eyes. "David, I knew you couldn't leave me." He tried to pull away, but Anna was quicker. She shoved Noah off him with a firm tone. "Please respect yourself, miss." Their old friends quickly gathered around, frowning. "Noah, what are you doing? You're divorced. Why are you still calling him husband?" He straightened his wrinkled clothes with a look of disdain. Anna, his fiancée, was already angry at Noah's behavior, but knew not to escalate things in such a public setting. "Let's go to the cafe downstairs," she suggested. Noah nodded, and they walked away, leaving the crowd behind. At the cafe, Noah's heart was in turmoil. She watched him, her every thought filled with regret. He had once never looked at another woman when he was with her, but now he barely spared her a glance. Noah finally spoke, her voice trembling. "David, why did you divorce me?" He was taken aback by her question, but calmly responded, "Once I fulfilled the terms of the contract, I had to move on with my life." She shook her head in disbelief. "I don't believe it. You can't tell me that everything you did for me was just because of that contract. Didn't you ever feel anything for me?" Her body trembled as she spoke, desperate for an answer, but afraid of hearing the truth. He met her gaze steadily. "No, I never had feelings for you. When the contract was signed, our relationship was a business arrangement, a bond for family interests. I reminded myself that this was merely a contract. By the time it was signed, I was already prepared for the divorce. Honestly, I had once viewed Noah through rose-colored glasses. She had been the lively, innocent girl from my youth, and I was young too, without much experience in love. Her beauty had made me feel something, but I quickly realized our connection was contractual. Did I try to love her? Perhaps, but my heart wasn't made of stone. After being neglected for Samuel's sake repeatedly, I understood the reality of our relationship. I reminded myself over and over that this was just an agreement, and I no longer had any personal feelings for Noah. After 5 years of living together, he could hardly bring himself to hate Noah anymore. By the end, all he felt was relief, a sense of freedom. Hearing him say this, Noah's face drained of color. "Noah, I'll say it one last time. I never loved you, whether 5 years ago or now. There is no possibility for us to ever be together again. Moreover, I already have a fiancé, and I'm very happy now. I hope you won't disturb us." He laid it out plainly. He wasn't concerned with how Noah would react. He just wanted to put an end to this, get back to the party, and deal with work. Noah stood frozen, and Anna and he walked away without a second glance. By the time Noah came to her senses, they had already gone far, and the coffee on the table had long gone cold. The forum proceeded smoothly. He was the star of the event, with many local business tycoons trying to please him. In the evening, he couldn't refuse and attended a banquet. After the meal, the waiter brought in a basket of flowers. "Mr. Wong, these flowers are from Miss Noah to celebrate your return to the country." He gave it a cursory glance and instructed his assistant to return them. "Please tell Miss Liu that I only accept flowers from my wife. I won't accept any others." He looked at the lilies in the basket and couldn't help but laugh. Noah must have gotten it wrong. The lilies were Samuel's favorite flowers, while he only liked irises. The tycoons in the room were sharp, and upon seeing his sour expression, the atmosphere suddenly became awkward. The waiter, unable to make up her mind, hesitated before being dragged away by the others. But that didn't stop Noah. Every day she sent him something. Sometimes flowers, sometimes gifts, sometimes delicate pastries. But most of the time, before they even reached him, he had his assistant throw them away. Noah refused to give up. Finally, she stopped him on his way home from work. "Why won't you accept anything I send? Do you really hate me that much?" she asked. He sneered. "Yeah, I hate you, you ex-wife. What's the point of pretending to be all sentimental now? Isn't it a little late? Back then, you didn't want me around because I was in your way with Samuel. Now we're divorced. Why don't you go chase your dreams and leave me alone?" Noah's eyes turned red. Her voice choked as she subconsciously panicked. "No, David, I never agreed to the divorce. And after you left, I realized I didn't love Samuel. I really loved you. For Samuel, I was just enamored with his idol image, forgetting who I truly loved. Now I realize I was wrong. David, if I apologize, can we start over?" He laughed bitterly. The sweet memories Noah had were painful for him, memories he didn't want to revisit. He never wanted to go back to the past. So he coldly pushed Noah away. "You think you can't live without me, but really you're just lonely and miss having someone cater to your every whim. You don't even understand what love is. You, as a spoiled heiress, still can't figure out your life. You can't distinguish between love and infatuation. You don't deserve anyone's love." His words were blunt. Noah's face went deathly pale. As the Liu family's eldest daughter, she was used to having people listen to her and rarely had anyone see her like this, defeated. But he didn't care. This was how he truly felt. He didn't linger. He walked past her and got into the car. He decided to take Anna to the Liu family's house to visit his ex-mother-in-law. Although Liu's mother had him sign the contract with ulterior motives, she had been kind to him over the years. She hadn't made things difficult for him and had helped the Wang family with business matters. Out of respect and decency, he felt he should visit her. At the time, Liu's mother had come up with this idea to help Noah get back on her feet, but honestly, it was like trying to cure poison with poison. Liu's mother had indulged Noah too much, never teaching her how to treat others equally or how to value love and relationships. Back then, because of the Liu family's power, he had no choice but to sign the contract. As an outsider, there was nothing he could change. He had sacrificed 5 years for Liu's mother's wishes, but now he had grown into someone of influence. He had found his true love. He couldn't compromise anymore. He wouldn't sacrifice himself for others. Liu's mother watched the mature man before her and felt immense regret. A man like David, steady and reliable, was hard to find, especially one who was a perfect match for the Liu family in both power and success. If Noah had awakened and stayed with David instead of stubbornly chasing after Samuel, the Liu family would have had such a successful son-in-law. Liu's mother thought to herself, "Now if I were willing to marry into the Liu family and start over with Noah, it would be a very good choice. They would all support it." But after hearing Liu's mother's words, he rejected them outright. "Madam, when the Wang family came back to expand their business, you helped us a lot. These gifts are a token of my appreciation. Please accept them. But as for the rest, I'm afraid I can't help you. Please don't make things difficult for me." He was no longer the young, naive man he used to be. Now he held power, rising in the business world. He no longer had to grovel when speaking to Liu's mother. She was taken aback at first, then could only sip her tea, swallowing the words she had intended to say. Just as Anna and he were leaving the Liu family's house, they ran into a drunken Noah. She asked, "David, are you here specifically to see me?" Noah's eyes widened in surprise, her voice full of hope. He looked down at her and explained calmly, "That's not it. It's just that your mother still expects me to abandon my own life and take care of you again, thinking I'm some young fool who's easy to push around." Well, I think she's mistaken. Noah's breath hitched as she suddenly remembered the agreement from 5 years ago. All the things he had done for her, all the patience he had shown, were based on sacrificing his dignity and career. The challenges Noah posed to him were something most people couldn't bear, but he endured them for 5 whole years, patiently staying by her side until her mood improved. One could only imagine how difficult those days had been for him. Noah was overcome with guilt, her nose tingling, and she lowered her head, tears falling. "I'm sorry, David. She knew there was nothing more to say that could fix things. Before she could finish, he took Anna's hand and walked away. Maybe the conversation from last time had finally made Noah give up. She didn't try to disturb Anna and him anymore. It wasn't until a gathering in the industry that he took Anna along to introduce her to some of his friends. But soon after they arrived, an unexpected scene unfolded. "David, what are you doing here?" A sharp voice interrupted his conversation. He turned around and saw Maria, her face full of anger. It turned out that Noah had targeted Maria, leading her to lose her job, and now she was working as a waitress, serving drinks at the banquet. Maria looked at him, laughing and chatting with others, her eyes filled with resentment. She blamed him for changing her life. His sudden disappearance had angered Noah and led to everything that happened to her. Thinking about all the hardships she had faced over the years, Maria's anger boiled over. She picked up a steak knife from a nearby plate and charged at him. "You don't get to be happy if I'm not." He instinctively tried to dodge, but in his peripheral vision he saw Anna hadn't reacted yet. A warning went off in his head, and he immediately turned, wrapping his arms around Anna. In the blink of an eye, he felt a stab in his back, but before he could process the pain, The security guards acted quickly, subduing Maria and taking the knife from her hands. Blood soaked through his dark suit, but he endured the pain and checked to make sure Anna wasn't injured. Only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. Noah rushed over, and the event organizer soon arrived, furious upon seeing one of their invited guests injured. He gritted his teeth and said, "Miss Lu, your friend really has the best manners. I remember at the banquet before Mr. Wang went abroad. Maria made things difficult for him in public, and now she causes this again. What exactly are you trying to do?" Everyone turned to Noah, watching her face change from pale to red. He kept his composure, his eyes filled with sarcasm. Maria, seizing the moment, began to make a scene. "It's all your fault. If you hadn't disappeared, Noah wouldn't have targeted me, and I wouldn't have ended up as a waitress." At first, Maria had been trying to suck up to Noah. The little that Noah gave her each month had been enough for her to live on. Not to mention the bigger circles she got to experience through Noah, being friends with rich young ladies, hoping one day to live a life of a high society lady. But now she was left with only $3,000 a month, barely enough to pay the rent. And everything else was gone. He mocked her. "How laughable. You helped Noah bully me, humiliate me, and now when things go wrong, you push all the blame onto me. What do you think you are? You helped Noah bully me, humiliate me, and now when things go wrong, you push all the blame onto me." His voice carried weight. Maria finally realized that the man in front of her was no longer the powerless clerk she had once known. She cursed. "You're nothing but a dog now that you're someone important. Don't forget you were still under our heels back then." Noah bit her lip. "Shut up," she said with a loud slap, striking Maria across the face. Maria shouted, "Noah, I stood up for you and you're doing this to me. David may be successful now, but he's still nothing compared to Samuel. He doesn't deserve you. Don't let him fool you." Maria's words were filled with bitterness and pain, but Noah frowned, quickly covering Maria's mouth and warning her to be quiet. She glanced at the security guards and ordered, "This madwoman is just rambling. Are you all just going to stand there and take her away?" Noah then crouched beside him and said, "David, are you all right? I'll have someone take you to the hospital." He really didn't expect her to come. "And," he said, "Noah, I won't forget what happened today." He interrupted her. "Maria wasn't really targeting me, right? And the world is so small. How did she manage to get in here? Didn't you have a hand in this? You should be thankful my fiancé wasn't hurt, or you'd be in big trouble," he added, his words firm. Everyone in the room understood the implication. Today's entire incident was orchestrated by Noah, and her goal was Anna. It was almost chilling to think someone could be so ruthless. Lou's mother turned pale and said, "David, we'll make sure to address what happened today. Whatever the cost, the Lou family will compensate you." He ignored her and took Anna to the hospital. Later that night, the Lou family villa was far from peaceful. Maria lay on the floor, bruised and battered, her skin torn from the beating, her eyes empty and lifeless. Noah was gasping for breath, her own exhaustion evident. Lou's mother paced nervously, saying, "What's the point of hitting her? Do you think the Wang family is someone we can afford to offend?" The Wang family was at its peak, while the Lou family, with no one to take over the business, was on a steep decline. Lou's father arrived home, furious. Without a word, he slapped Noah across the face. "I raised a useless child like you. You are a disgrace to the Lou family." He glanced at Maria on the floor and ordered, "Get her out of here and make sure she disappears from F-City. We can't afford any more trouble with Wong. This can never happen again." Noah tried to intervene. "Dad, even if Maria was wrong, you can't just treat her like this." Lou's father, clearly disappointed with his daughter's lack of understanding, sighed deeply. "For years, the Lou family has been prominent, and now I see it's all going to be ruined by you. All you think about is love and men. You've become useless." He turned to Lou's mother. "And you spoiled her. Now look at the mess she's made. If you don't start disciplining her, who knows what kind of trouble she'll cause next." His anger was palpable as he warned, "If this continues, I'll disown you. Everything will go to your brother." Noah was stunned, her face draining of color as Lou's father's harsh words sank in. "Get out. The Lou family doesn't want you anymore." Noah and her mother stood frozen as Lou's father's words echoed. They collapsed onto the ground, pale and speechless, unable to process the situation. The news of the Lou family's downfall spread quickly within their social circle. Everyone could see that David had taken decisive action against them, and Noah's reckless behavior had cost her dearly. A week later, the Lou family stock crashed, and they faced the risk of bankruptcy. This was just the beginning of David's subtle yet effective retaliation. Lou's father knew David had only given them a warning as he waited to see their sincerity. At home, Lou's father gathered Noah and Lou's mother, his gaze cold as he spoke. "Wife, you should go to Australia and enjoy your retirement. Don't come back to China." Lou's mother was stunned, unable to react to the sudden announcement. Then Lou's father turned to Noah. "All your shares are gone. You are no longer my daughter. From now on, you are on your own." Noah, in shock, pleaded, "Dad, I'm your daughter. How can you say that?" Lou's mother begged, "I've been with you for so many years, and now you want me gone. This is too cruel." But Lou's father remained unmoved, his expression hardening. He cared only for the Lou family's business, and everything else could be discarded. "You both can leave. The Lou family doesn't want you," he declared. Noah and her mother, now utterly defeated, collapsed to the floor, stunned by the turn of events. They had never imagined that David's influence had reached this level. News of the Lou family's downfall spread quickly, and people began whispering about David's actions. It was clear he had not spared them in his pursuit of revenge for Noah's past manipulation. Anna and he were preparing to return to their home country. While packing, Anna asked, "Are we going back so soon?" He hugged her from behind and laughed. "What? Don't you want to get married?" Blushing, Anna didn't respond, but it was clear that everything had changed between them. She had seen his true feelings and agreed to marry him. As for him, he no longer wanted to stay in F City, weary of Noah's entanglements. Just as they were about to leave, Anna showed him something on her phone. She said, "Do you remember the star, Samuel?" He paused. Samuel had disappeared from the public eye after leaving the entertainment industry. He hadn't heard much about him, so he was surprised to see the news. "Samuel passed away just yesterday." He read the headline in shock. Samuel died at home yesterday due to a family dispute. Apparently, he had argued with his wife, who, in a heated moment, pushed him down the stairs, causing his accidental death. It was a bitter reminder that the past, particularly Noah's obsession with Samuel, had led to irreversible consequences. Had it not been for Noah's pursuit of Samuel, this tragedy might never have happened. As Anna and he prepared to leave, friends organized a farewell party for them. After a lively evening as they were about to head home, a car behind them flashed its high beams. "David, I need to talk to you," came Noah's voice. She was driving, her eyes determined. She blocked the road with her car, causing a traffic jam. Fearing for Anna's safety, he reluctantly got into the car. Noah drove off, silent as they headed toward the Wong family estate. Finally, she spoke. "David, if it weren't for that contract, if there were no Samuel, would you have ever been with me?" He paused, nearly thinking he had misheard her. Noah's eyes were hopeful, as if waiting for him to say something comforting. But he laughed, his voice calm and resolute. "Whether there was a contract or not, no matter who you chased, we would never have been together." He looked at Noah's head, which hung low, and continued, "And you, how could you possibly love me? You've spent all your time chasing Samuel, almost losing your mind over him. You never paid attention to me. Do you even know what I like, what my hobbies are? Do you understand my true nature? You don't know anything about me. Don't talk about love. It's ridiculous. You only cared about my devotion, about how I gave everything for you for 5 years without complaint. You were used to that love being given, but when it was taken back, you couldn't stand it. You think you know love? But you don't. You don't understand loyalty, sacrifice, and responsibility. You don't deserve to love anyone, and you certainly don't deserve to love me." With every word he spoke, Noah's face turned even paler. If only you had a little bit of heart. These 5 years wouldn't have been filled with so much disappointment. And I wouldn't have completely given up on you. You wouldn't have cheated during our marriage, repeatedly running to others, causing a family to fall apart because of your actions. He said, "I have my own life now, and someone I love. Please don't bother me anymore." He said it all in one breath, leaving Noah standing there, stunned as if all the energy had been drained from her. Tears streamed down her face, her heart breaking into pieces. Noah stared at him as he walked away, knowing she had lost all chances with no reason to keep him. But at that moment, a blinding light suddenly flashed, and he instinctively covered his eyes. Then came Noah's scream and the screeching of car brakes. By the time he reacted, he saw Noah lying in a pool of blood, her face expressionless, and Maria looking like she had lost all sense of herself. It turned out that Maria, in a state of complete despair after fleeing from the Liu family, had tried to seek revenge on him. That was the reason behind tonight's incident. She hated him for changing her fate and causing the Liu family to want her eliminated. Maria wanted him dead, wanted him to pay with his life. But just as things were about to take a tragic turn, Noah had shoved him aside. He fell to the ground, scraping only a little skin, but Noah was hit full force, falling hard to the ground and losing consciousness. He quickly called the police, but it was too late. Noah's injuries were severe, and she was rushed to the hospital where she slipped into a coma. After a whole day of emergency treatment, the doctors managed to stabilize her condition, but they said she would be dependent on machines for the rest of her life, confined to a hospital bed forever. Maria was immediately arrested for intentional harm and thrown into prison. The Liu family had connections, so it was certain that she would face severe punishment. After the incident, Anna and he rushed to the hospital, looking at Noah, barely recognizable. His emotions were complex and conflicted. They had nothing to do with each other anymore. So why had she risked her life to save him? Had she completely given up on her own life? He sighed and didn't want to dwell on it. Perhaps it was because Noah had lived as a pampered lady her entire life, thinking all she needed was to receive love without having to give anything in return. But in that moment, something he said in the car had changed her. She reached out for him, and that act of redemption was far too late. What use was love that came too late? But still, she had been hurt for his sake, so he changed their flight tickets and waited patiently for Noah to wake up. A week later, Noah regained consciousness. Upon learning that she would never be able to walk again, and that it was Maria who had hit her with the car, Noah didn't show much of a reaction. She simply looked at him with tears in her eyes, but remained silent for a long time. She glanced at the bouquet of irises at the bedside and smiled peacefully. They had been together for 5 years. Whenever he was upset, Noah would casually give him a bouquet of lilies to comfort him, and he would immediately calm down. So Noah always thought he liked lilies. But after their divorce, when she became obsessed with him, she visited every place he used to go. Only then did she learn that he was actually allergic to lilies. He didn't love lilies. Samuel did, but because they were from Noah, he smiled and accepted them. Later, Noah found out that he liked irises, but after 5 years together, she hadn't known. It was like the wrong flowers. Their entire 5-year marriage was a series of mistakes. She had never really cared about him, just like the flowers she gave at the wrong time. It was in the wrong place with the right person. No matter what others did, Noah had already lost him because she never took him seriously. Noah looked at the men before her and remembered that day on the yacht. When he had knelt on broken glass and proposed to her, Noah knew he wasn't good at lying. That sincere, heart-wrenching gaze had been real. But once, he had loved her. When had she lost him? And when had she failed to find him again? Noah was overwhelmed by a deep, inexplicable sadness. She realized that their relationship was completely over. The regret that came too late made her cry uncontrollably. Only now did Noah understand what it truly meant to love someone. She had fallen in love with him when it was already impossible. She finally recognized the intense love she had for him. Noah cried so much she could hardly speak, but she still managed to force a smile, choking, "David, goodbye, never again." Anna and he successfully returned home, and on the plane, he received news that Lou's mother had passed away. After being sent abroad, she had heard about Noah's accident, and the shock caused her to collapse from a heart attack. Without a nurse at home, by the time she was found and rushed to the hospital, it was too late. She had already passed away. As he listened to the news, he felt a deep sense of sorrow. Everyone paid the price for their actions, some painfully, others irreversibly. The Lou family, once thriving, fell apart, losing two crucial figures in an instant. Lou's father was drowning in debt and had to sell the company to settle it. On the day the Lou family went bankrupt, he saw Noah on television. She was sitting in a wheelchair, wearing mourning clothes, clutching a white flower wreath. Her eyes were hollow, void of any expression. People came up to her to offer their condolences, but Noah seemed deaf to it, sitting still until the coffin was lifted away. Then she screamed in agony, crying almost to the point of fainting. "Mom, you're the only one who ever truly loved me. Now both you and David are gone. What will I do?" Noah's sobs were so heartbreaking that she eventually fainted. He turned off the television. The once cherished daughter of the Lou family had become disabled, and her mother had tragically passed away. The once prosperous Lou family had collapsed so suddenly. Everyone felt sorry for it, and he was no exception. But karma had come for them, and he had no words to offer. As planned, Anna and he held their wedding, surrounded by the love and blessings of their family and friends. They kissed each other happily. After the wedding, Anna continued her research, and he kept working hard for his career. Their values aligned, and every day they spent together was full of sweetness and happiness. In early winter, as the first snow fell, Anna excitedly told him, "I'm going to be a dad." They embraced, watching the snow fall outside, entering a new stage of their lives. The warmth of that moment brought peace to his heart. Just then, he received a call from a friend in China. He said, "Noah is dead. She took her own life in the hospital. She left a letter for you. Do you want to see it?" He looked at Anna, who was cooking, and shook his head. "No, burn it. There's no such thing as a pill for regret and no second chances. Noah's life was hers to choose, and I had no right to interfere." He added, "After our divorce, we were strangers. Why would I read the letter of a stranger? I had no desire to look back, and I certainly didn't want to accept her late affection." The snow stopped. He hung up the phone and walked back home. He hugged Anna from behind, resting his hand on her stomach, feeling the growth of life. "We will be happier every day," he said firmly. He kissed Anna, and with that, he believed that after the storm, a clear sky was waiting for him.